Hello everyone, N3FJZ here. Okay, I just finished constructing two 50-watt PAs. These are the W6JL 50-watt final amplifiers. And what I'm going to do is take these two and using a splitter on the input and a combiner on the output, combine both of them together to generate 100 watts on 40 meters at least. And once I finish low pass filters, I will give them a try on 80 and 160 meters as well. The amp on the right actually was featured in an earlier video, but it had a different heat sink. And what I just finished doing is transferring this amp onto a homebrew heatsink, scratch built from aluminum angle. And for SSB, the duty cycle is low enough where I didn't need the heatsink with the fan. And the one on the left, I've been using this 50-watt amp here for a number of days, and for SSB, it barely gets warm. So what I did is I constructed a heat sink, an identical heat sink for the other amp, and then transferred it to its heat sink. So now they're both identical. But what I've done here is just used aluminum angle, and it's a I think it's a 1.5 inch angle, and then there's a U type angle or U bracket, and use those as the fins. I just bolted everything together. So, and that's in the spirit of homebrewing as much as I can. Probably could have gotten just normal heat sinks, but I had this available, so I went ahead and used it. Okay, what I want to do is the amp on the right, I want to make sure it still functions, because I did remove most of the components in the finals, the transformer, and some of the filter capacitors. And I added some more capacitance, and I've also added in a choke, which is the ferrite on the top with the red Teflon wire that wasn't in the original design, just to give it a little bit more filtering. So I want to connect. I have let me get this out of the way. It's a relay assembly and a low pass filter that will go on the amp in this way here. So I want to go ahead and solder that up and just do the final bias adjustment and just verify that these or this particular amp is functioning as well before I move on to the combiner. Okay, I have the relay and low pass filter board now soldered on, and I'm going to go ahead and connect it up to the 4-watt amp that drives it. And with these relays and low pass filter, I can test this module to make sure it's outputting 50 watts. And then hopefully I'll go ahead and build up the splitter and combiner, but that'd be for a later video. So now we'll go ahead and test to make sure the amp is still functioning. Okay, have the amp connected to the rig now, and the first thing I'm going to do is set the idling current on these MOSFETs. And the MOSFETs that I'm using are the IRFZ34N. And if you have read the article, the W6JL article on his amp that he built, his original design used the IRFZ24N, and the 34N, based on his paper and some of the testing I've done here, seems to work better for the lower bands, 40, 80, and 160. Okay, first step we'll do here is set each final to 100 milliamp idling current. Okay, with both biases turned down, I have 16 milliamps, so I'll adjust the first one, so we'll have 116. Okay, and then we'll adjust a second final for 216. Okay, that drifted up a little bit. Let me bring us back down to 16. And this one will bring up to 216. Okay. Idling, well, there's no drive. Turn the bias on. Should eventually get up to 216. Curiously, I've found that once the FETs are under bias for a period of time, they'll reach the setting. But then if you unkey the transmitter and rekey it, it takes them a while to get back up to their idling current. Okay, so that's the idle adjustment. Next test will be actually giving it some drive. Okay, I have unbalanced my balance modulator to send the carrier through to the output through the low pass or through the band pass filter and to the first amp, which is it generates the 5 watts that the 50 watt amp, or it's actually around 2 watts after it gets through the attenuator. But what I'm going to do here, and you can see the watt meter is set to the 200 watt setting or range. I'm going to go ahead and just bring up the drive on the 2 watt amp until we get to 50 watts, and there it is right there. Okay, and here's a view of the output on the scope. And we have 150 volts peak to peak into 50 ohms. Okay, and here's the amp with a little modulation. Test 1 2 3 3 2 1 N3 FJZ testing 1 2 3 3 2 1 test 1 2 3 3 2 1. Okay, this is the test of the W6JL 50 watt amp into a 50 ohm dummy load, monitoring the modulation using a scope. Okay, and here's a test looking at the watt meter. This is N3 FJZ testing 1 2 3 3 2 1. Okay, it looks like that amp is working, and now on to seeing if I can combine these two 50-watt modules into a 100-watt using a splitter and a combiner. And hopefully I'll have a video on that shortly, or there may be smoke. Don't know yet. Anyway, have a great day. 7-3 everyone. N3 FJZ.